good afternoon, formerly good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. My name is Dr. Emmanuel Emielu. I'm your host for this program. I'm happy to do that. And this webinar is on project management, specifically project management for what we call non-technical professionals, project management for consultants, HR, marketing, and similar functions. We realize that for the people who are in the quote admin in organizations, they play a key role in the organizational performance and organizational success, and therefore the project skills are needed for them as they are for those guys in the field. And the platform for this webinar is called criticalskills.net. And what we're trying to do is how to make knowledge affordable, accessible, because performance, as we all know, is driven by our knowledge. So that's that opportunity for us to take learning in small bites, like a webinar like this, helps that process. Quickly do introduction for my colleague and I, Hanellie, Venucia.
Well, first of all, thank you for everybody for taking the time to be with us. We know your time is precious these days and people are really zoomed out as well. So we really do appreciate you joining us. And my background is a strong consulting background. My first roles were in HR and also in recruitment, specifically in science and engineering, performing psychometric testing and the likes. And yeah, my consulting career spans more than 30 years in so many different aspects, which I'm really grateful for having the opportunity to explore all those aspects and working on 4 different continents in different industries with leaders and executives and on projects. And what I love most, obviously, for me personally, is change management, strategy, leadership, creative innovation, sense making, and the likes. But from a functional perspective, also IT, HR, project management, and management consulting as a subject as well. For me, it's just really great to be at this time of my life to share some wisdom of my own experiences forward from a rich consulting background and business background in so many different other areas. And so I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emmanuel. Yes, when we talk about experience, I think about the story of the big animals playing football, rugby, like in Africa, South Africa, not soccer, with the small animals. And the big animals are ahead immediately. It's logical, they are ahead immediately. And the coach of the small animals think he must get in an inspirational speaker to speak a little bit, to get his people pumped up, get them motivated. So easily the score was 60-0. It was just incredible. And he asked timeout, can he speak to his team? They go off the field and he gets the inspirational speaker to speak to them. And they go back onto the field. And suddenly there's a score for the small animals, but nobody can see who did it. Nobody can see who did it because they are so small. And again, another try and another conversion. And so it goes on. And the big animals are stunned because they cannot see, they cannot even notice this player on the field who is scoring so heavily. And after they've surpassed the big animals' score, the coach says, time out again, he wants to speak to his team. So he takes them back into the restroom and he says to them, who did that? Because nobody could see who did that. And the centipede so very carefully and slowly stick up its one hand, its one leg, and says, me, sir, but in a very small voice. And the coach said, but where were you from the beginning? Because we need you from the start. And he looked down very shyly and he said, but sir, I was tying up my boots. Now, we can't afford that in projects because we need to be ready. We need to be, especially in the world that we live in currently, where everything is changing so rapidly, so many disruptions, so many distractions and the likes. So how do you experience, our question here is just to get a little bit more of your input as well on those projects that you mentioned for us or others. What has been your experience in terms of project management? Was it something that energized you, drained you, made you excited? And then you can share with us freely. So just for a few moments, just to get a sense of, it could be your challenges, it could also be lessons that you learned, and it could also be those things that really excite you as to be part of any project management initiative that you are busy in right now, or even in the past. Now, I can start. I'll share one that always comes back to my mind, that still today I'm boggled about what happened. At some time, we were doing a lot of turnkey projects. So it was huge, massive projects and so many stakeholders, so many aspects to these projects. But I was grateful to be part of a high-performance team. And the beauty was, and yes, the world changed a lot since then, I totally agree, but the beauty was that wellness was at the center of it all. Because if somebody had to work overtime, the others came to help. There was just this congruency and this coming togetherness that I've never seen anywhere before, because people didn't care if somebody else was going to get promoted, if they come and help them and they were not part of that project. So people outside of the project, also the people that we have present here today, people that were in HR, in finance, in legal, in other parts of the business that was not technically orientated, they came to help. And so it fueled, it was creating so much synergy that I'm still inspired today by it, and that but more than 20 years ago. So I'm curious about what you have been experiencing. No, I just want to say that is such a reality. Thank you for sharing that. It's a reality that we all have, especially in today's world where everything changes so quickly, and there are so many variables that we have to that we can't predict for. So how do we come back on track? And like you say, it comes back to the project manager or the program manager, and so there's quite a lot of responsibility. So thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that. There's so much beyond that, and I think that's why your upcoming course is quite powerful to go into the detail of this, because there's so much behind it. And what you've been sharing until now was, for me, all about the what and the how, the what and the how. So when we come back to project management thinking, we're coming to the who. How do we have to think, for example? So first of all, nothing great was ever accomplished without passion, purpose, enthusiasm, and the likes. We need that as a human being to start off anything we want to do. And it really applies a lot to project management too. Now, as Emmanuel so beautifully showed and shared, that a project has a beginning and an end date. So we want to get from point A to point B. So there's a specific outcome that we expected, which is a linear process. But if we really look at life happens in a very interesting way, because there are many variables that's currently happening in the world that impacts us. And if we look back 10, 20 years ago, in terms of project management, we could follow a linear line. So we have project plans like this picture here, with a very defined beginning and ending point. And it is as if we start from 0 to get to 100%, to get to that achievement. But now the world has transformed, and where we before could look internally, mostly when we looked at project management, there's so many other things that's impacting us and that's influencing our success and where we are in our projects, that we cannot predict or even anticipate for much of that, because of what's happening in the world around us. So there's now, in the world that we're living now, we have to contend as a project manager with the internal aspects as well as the external aspects that's constantly changing and transforming. So that asks from us to really think very differently about project management. And then typically we would have progress reports. So I just want to tell you to have a look at this. and then go to here. So these are just examples. And I love that the one on the right is a little bit of a color. It's not just writing. And then we determine how well we've done with graphs and the likes, pie charts, and just to see how well we've done. But what is missing from these pictures? There's not a single human being in them. There's not a single human being in this data and numbers and figures. And yes, we need that as part of that planning process and that beautiful process that Emmanuel has now shared with us. It's not alive. People struggle to resonate with that. They struggle to connect with that because they see themselves as outside of it. They don't see themselves as inside of it. They see they are fulfilling this project role. Everybody who's participating, all stakeholders that's involved, they see themselves as externally from it. So how do we get them to come into the center of it? It's with our own project management mindset. Now, if we really look at it, ask yourself, if we look at tasks, generally speaking, it can easily bore us if we just have a list of tasks. And manic activities, when we have so much to do, can drain us. So that multitasking, all those things that's required for us, we have to think as a project manager about so many different things at the same time. We really need to be a magician. It can drain us easily. So we have lots of stress-related burnout and the likes that's happening in the world when we are delivering a project and which we are responsible for. And sometimes a lot of it's crisis management, like there's a storm in the teacup, and we're trying to, like Helen just shared, there are so much going on, things change, the original plan is no longer valid, and it can create a lot of fear and anxiety and tension. But how do we deal with that? Now, one way to deal with that is to move beyond tasks and activities to inspired actions, to get people on board. And I think it was you, Helen, who shared about change management. That is so powerful and so important. The role of a project manager and that of a change manager is highly interlinked. And a lot of projects, there's sometimes not enough budget for change management. So it's expected from the project manager to take that role over as well. And it's an aspect that we cannot neglect, because then we will be in trouble. Because we want to have activities and tasks and actions that will energize us, that will encourage us when things go rough, when we are maybe behind, when we need to catch up, for example. Now, the ability to take a project from marginal to great one requires specific mindset from us. Now, first of all, for me, I'm always thinking of a project as a garden. We are growing something. We are busy planting seeds. We are nourishing them, just like a seed is nourished by the sun and the rain. And the soil must be fertile. So the space and the conditions for it to thrive must be there. It's part of our project management mindset to create that space where others that participate in making this happen, that they can thrive and that we can be successful. Because if our people are thriving, then our project will thrive. And when we bring life back into it, we can see our contribution not just as a task on a project plan or activity, is we are bearing the fruit. We are creating it. Now, you can't perhaps see this visual on the right here. It's an orange grove. So there's tons of oranges on those trees. We are making that happen. And that's really important for those participating. To go the extra mile, to think outside the box, to be more open to what can we do better if something goes wrong. How can we realign? How can we regroup very quickly? Because life happens. Life does not happen in a straight line. And yes, it's like a river. So what Emmanuel shared with us, it's like the banks of the river. It gives us the structure and the boundaries so that this river can flow. And sometimes, yes, there will be storms, and sometimes the river will overflow, and those things will happen. And there will be bends in the river as well. But if we can create the environment where people feel this is something that's alive, it's literally like a garden, we'll have a very different outcome. And when I think of project management, it reminds me also about baking cake. So when we bake cake, first of all, we have this desire to bake something incredible. If you're a baker, for example, So there's that desire to do something that's needed. So that's part of our project management mindset. We need to have this desire, this enthusiasm, this passion to make this thing happen. Then we have a recipe with instructions, and that now links beautifully to, and the ingredients that's required, links beautifully to the project plan and what Emmanuel just shared with us, as well as the preparation that's required for this to happen, which sometimes is neglected. In my own experience, we have had many instances where there's not enough time for this preparation part, because this is when we can start playing with different types of scenarios that can happen along the line. So it's very strategic on this level as well. But we begin to combine those ingredients, and the important part of the relevance to baking cake of a project, a successful project that's not just marginal, is that we have, as a project manager, realize that every ingredient brings a different function, not all the same. We don't just have flour in this cake. We have eggs, we have butter, we have baking powder and the likes for to rise. There are different aspects and each bring a different function. Yet without it, there won't be a cake. But the important part is a message that the project manager must get across to all the stakeholders, to the team that's delivering this, is that none of those ingredients stay like that to become a cake. It becomes something different, a completely new thing. And once we can begin to relate to that new thing, whatever that might be, something else happens. Because if we just simply do the activities, there's no relation with us to that. And then that can really bring a lot of discomfort and challenges along the line, because we are not willing to put in everything to make this happen, because we still just see it as a task on a project plan. And combining these elements, there's something else happening too. It now becomes this beautiful cake, yes, and we can decorate it and make it look beautiful. But the most important part of this is we are trying to create the experience, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether it's a specific other result that we want, whether we are organizing an event. It doesn't matter what we are doing. The purpose of it is to create an experience for others, even if it's in finance, a project in finance. It's there to create some kind of experience and the ability then to share it with others and to enjoy it ourselves. Now, I've seen so many burnt out project members through my time in consulting, delivering big projects, that it's quite scary. And it can be prevented if we from the beginning realize that there are these factors, these softer factors, so to speak, that's complementary, and actually we can't even neglect them as part of the process that Emmanuel just took you through. The other mindset change that we might need in our current modern day life in terms of projects is that it is a journey. And Emmanuel, you so beautifully said it's process, process, process. It's a journey. Yes, there's a beginning and end point, but after that, somebody's going to experience that and they're going to enjoy that. And so it goes beyond even that beginning and end time. And when you start seeing that purpose, so that it brings a lot of purpose into a project, that yes, for this project, we have a beginning and end time, but its impact and effects will be experienced by others long after this. That gives us purpose and meaning on some level. And as a manager, we're really making this happen. So it's a bringing in a new kind of professional into the world right now, into the world of project management. You're an influencer of all. You influence people to do something in a specific way. You conduct, it's like an orchestra, different instruments to play together in harmony to create this beautiful new melody. You organize. It's very collaborative. So there's this people side to it, this emotional intelligence side to it, relational intelligence side to it as well, that sometimes is neglected. And that will make us help delivering it on time and within budget and the likes. And moreover, you are a lighthouse. You're showing the way. And a lighthouse doesn't run after the people. A lighthouse is there for the ships that they don't get onto the rocks. So it's literally sharing light where others can't see it. And in our modern day, we need new navigational aids. Yes, we've got lots of productivity, performance management, time management tools and the likes. But a fool with a tool is still a fool. So we really need to look at the human side to it a lot more these days, especially with all the generational gaps, other gaps that we find in the world, gender, racial, cultural, and the likes. Especially when we have global organizations who plays across timelines with different cultures. So we have to consider those cultural effects as well. And if you really go and look at project management's evolution in the last 10, 20, 30 years, it's moving from functional to significance. Where previously it was a function that you fulfilled on the project, now we begin to bring the human part in, the who part in it, and the why part in it of the significance. That makes people proud. That creates inspired action. That makes it different from just activities and manual input. And you are really also, as an influencer, you guide and you inspire all the way to make this happen, to orchestrate this happening. And with all the distractions that we currently have in the world, with social media, the attention economy and the likes, which really demand our attention all the time, besides other people in our organization or in our teams, or our other external, internal stakeholders, the ability to go from that distractions to focus and flow. Now, what happens when we are in flow? It means we are so absorbed by activity that the rest of the world don't exist. But it takes something different from us to get into that state of being. And a project manager, they are the orchestrator of that happening. It's up to them to create a space for that to happen, to really excite people, to energize people, that it's energized effort, not simply tasks. So it becomes very constructive and generative. It's something that can grow. I can see it grow in front of me. It's not just something that's conceptual on a project plan or on a progress report anymore, not just words. And then in the same time, we move from micromanagement to empowerment, and from crisis management to responsiveness, which is so needed in our world right now. Now, why are all these things needed? That we can cultivate trust and confidence. And trust and confidence in our world currently is quite interesting because of what's busy happening. There's so many polarities. Our differences are weaponized against us and the likes. So I just want you to quickly look at this and just think for yourself, whatever role you play as a project manager, in the role that you, from an operational perspective as well, what side of your brain are you using mostly? Now, I'm going to be very, I have a lot of assumptions here when I say this, so please forgive me. It's not, I'm just using it as an example. Now, for a finance person, they're usually very logical, analytical, and the likes. They have to be. Whereas somebody in sales and marketing is using their right brain more because they need to be very creative. They need to think outside the box. There's a lot of relationship things that needs to happen for them to connect to the prospective audience, clients, and the likes, but also the stakeholders in the team, for example. The same in human resources. It's more human-centric, so more right brain orientated. And then traditionally, administration jobs is a lot more left brain orientated. We file, we classify, and the likes. And in terms of business development, the same as sales and marketing, more right brain, more creative in how we present ourselves and whatever we offer. The same with teaching is a lot more people orientated. And again, neither of this is good or bad. I just wanted to show you that we have a variety of this going on when we are delivering a project, especially from a non-technical perspective, because we have different stakeholders playing who think very differently, who use parts of their brains more, and hence they will get different results. But we have to orchestrate this, that this become a whole picture, so that we have whole system thinking. So in creating a project management mindset, there is a lot involved. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse of that. I'm not going to talk through this because there's so much on the slide. And you might not be able to see, I'm not sure if you can see everything on the right-hand side. What I wanted to demonstrate to you here is in our current world today, we need to be able to interpret signals that's coming from the environment around us as a project management very quickly. And we have to grasp context very quickly, because context for me here in South Africa, in Cape Town, and you sitting in Lagos is very different. Like same for somebody sitting in Eswatini, for somebody who's sitting in Kenya, for somebody who's sitting in Europe, especially if we have global teams. My conditions that I'm currently in, it can be very different from that of Suzanne and that of Helen, although we're in the same city. Likewise with you are in Nigeria or in Ghana. So again, when we want to be a project manager today, it's almost as if it seems like it's an inhumanely task that's required from us, because we have to apply both our left brain and right brain abilities. And we have to work on the ones that's not so strong. Those gives us ideas on where for learning and development, personal development, and the likes. So it gives us a guideline, because all of them are required for us to make a project successful. And another one that stands out for me is we are not necessarily always responsive enough to early warning signals from the external world because of us being so internally focused on a project. But it's those external things that we cannot control. Let me give you an example. With the BRT bus project in Tshwane, in Pretoria, in South Africa, the project plans were incredible. All the preparation was done incredible. They were busy building the stations, the roads were busy being created, and then the rain came very early that year. And they couldn't continue the building of those structures because of the rain. It put us back 6 months on the project. Now, did the project fail? No, but leadership was not prepared for this. They were not prepared that there are these variables that we cannot control that happens on projects. And so whether we are arranging an event, whether we are, whether it's a finance project, whether it's something in HR that we do, maybe a new performance management process and the likes, it doesn't matter what it is. We need to be able to be responsive to these early warning signs. So we need to start to look at what's our strengths in all these different areas, and then to go to, because we want balance. It's not the either or situation, it's a both and. But at the end of it, we want people who have well-being, who are living a balanced life, who's reactive, not reactive, they're responsive, who can see the bigger picture as well as the details for us to make this happen. And small things that we can do to bring in a more project management mindset in this way, somebody else that mentioned it before, is celebrate all those tiny triumphs. Don't wait till the end to celebrate. Celebrate in between. Celebrate your yes moments. Celebrate your aha moments during the project. Celebrate even challenges, because it gives us an opportunity to regroup, relook at everything, and to maybe realign our approach. Before, we could literally strategically plan, and we had a lot more control. These days, we want to stay in flow. We want to, whatever is happening around ourselves, to be able to navigate that and still come back on course, and not getting in despair and hopelessness and the likes, and starting the blame and shame and guilt-tripping game. We want to keep everybody together. Hence, the people side just as important as the more analytical preparation and planning side.
Thank you for the time. I want to say a very big thank you. We hope that we can continue this conversation at our individual levels. Thank you, and God bless you.